Well, we're live. Not quite sure what that means, but we are live. Anyhow, today I wanted to discuss a little something with you about going to the store to buy a new phone. Now, I'm really enamored with Motorola products. I think that their phones are really, really good, and I even got a case. I got a Motorola G Play, I believe. It's an older version, has something like 3 gigs of RAM, 32 gigs of disk space, and 12 or 13 megapixel camera. So that it's not too fancy, but it's definitely a nice one. And you'd think that you go to get a phone and they'll just sell you a phone. Like, you don't run into anything weird. And then you realize when you're through the process of buying one that they're trying to basically act all weird about it. So I went to the store with the purpose of going there, getting a device for drawing, like a pad that basically has a writing utensil that doubles as a mouse that you can do some drawing with, and a phone. The phone, because I'm using it as a modem. Thank you, Mrs. Wife. The phone, because I'm using it as a modem, and my other one just took a dump. It was a piece of junk Huawei media pad or something like that. And this other one so that I can wind up making lessons more efficiently. And I thought that it would be a very simple process. You go in, you pick the phone that you want out, they unlock the thing, and they give you the phone, they tell you go, or they'll check you out, and then you leave the store. But no, they started asking, well, what's your name, what's your address, all this other crap. It's like, well, I just bought a phone. I came here to, or I'm here in the process of buying a phone. Why do you need my name? Why do you need my address? Why do you need all this personal identifying information? There's nothing criminal about buying a phone. There's nothing unusual about buying a phone, I don't think. And then finally they asked for my Finnish social security number. At which point I was like, okay, time out. No. Why are you asking for my Finnish social security number? I'm here to buy a phone. I'm not here for giving you my social security number. Because they had just asked me what my phone carrier was, and I was thinking, well, I'm assuming that there isn't any problem with any given SIM card or something. But after they asked me what my phone carrier was, I kind of put 2 and 2 together, but just in case they clarified. And the whole point was, we want to go and check with your phone carrier. We want to be able to log in with your credentials. We want to be able to look at your account. And we'd like to be able to, are you spending more or less than $20 a month on your plans? This is none of your business. And no, I'm not going to need any of that. That meaning that they wanted to essentially get my phone carrier to pay for the phone, and then just have me pay back the loan with repeated installments on my phone plan. They wanted me to take out a loan. Oh, hello, Jack. Good to see you. They wanted me to take out a loan to buy a €200 phone. And apparently this is the normal way people do it. So this got me to thinking a little bit about people's attitude toward money. And this got me to thinking about what kind of stupid, short-sighted, moronic idea is it to pay for an item that depreciates in installments with interest. Why would you take out a loan for something now that is going to be worth half of what it is worth now in a year? If I were to turn around and try to sell this, I'd be lucky to get 160. I've lost 40 euros of value just by taking it out of the packaging and putting a case on it. I put a screen cover on it, that's not going to change the value of this thing one bit. So, what's the idea? The idea is, it's the same as if you go and you look at a car commercial or something where they say, buy this car for $299. Well, $299, well, that's a bargain. Let me go and, empty my change, empty my, my jar full of change and see if I can find a car. No, it's because people think about how much is this going to cost me per month. So, of course, amortized over 12 months or something, this would be, they would probably charge me like some sort of a service fee, so 30 euros a month. So they would basically charge me 300 euros for a 200 euro phone. And yet, because people don't have the discipline to put money aside to be able to deal with when things go kablooey or what have you, to be able to amortize depreciation and so on themselves, the default position is to offer people a loan to buy for a liability, a depreciating object. So now that I'm almost done with this rant, I'm just thinking about what this says about people's attitude toward money in general. It tells me that most people that buy a phone, most people that go and buy a smartphone, which means most people in the Western world that happen to live in a place where that's kind of a normal thing to do, are poor and will remain poor for the rest of their lives. If they have that kind of an attitude toward money, they will remain poor. I have an approach that is pretty much guaranteed to make you not lose money by taking a loan. Assuming that you follow the simple instruction. A, look at the value of what it is you're taking a loan for, and look at the loan amount. Look at the interest rate. B, add up the cash flow you receive from owning something, specifically on account of that something, plus the appreciation. And if by simply owning something, like say a stock or a piece of real estate or something, if by simply owning something, appreciation plus the cash flow is greater than interest rate, go ahead, own the thing. Go ahead, take the loan. And even better, if it's just cash flow is greater than interest rate. And so that you're not constantly paying to be able to hold this asset. So it's not a constant out of pocket cost. It winds up becoming a little easier to maintain, so that you're not forced to go and figure out how to get cash flow from someplace else. But that's kind of secondary to the idea that you want whatever you are purchasing to be an investment, and don't ever sink money, especially loans. Don't ever sink borrowed money into a liability. That's called bad debt. And people get into it all the time, consumer debt. People want to buy a TV or whatever, and they don't want to spend the $5,000 or $1,000 or whatever, and so they'll go and they'll take a loan with service charges and all this and that and the other thing, and then they have a ball and chain that as soon as they remove it from the store, it's lost 20% of its value. So if you somehow get to the point of needing to be screwed paying a loan back after a month, well, too bad. You sell your thing, pay off 80% of the loan, and you're still down $200 on a $1,000 TV that you got. That's just stupid. And yet it seems that this kind of thinking is the default. This kind of thinking is what people yes, it is it is devious. And that's why I think, okay, first off, I think school is a turd. I don't particularly appreciate school as such. But if we're stuck, let's say hypothetically, there's absolutely no way to get rid of the current schooling paradigm, at least have them teach appropriate things. Most people will not need calculus. So, have basic math, some algebra, maybe geometry, and have a finance course, have a course in personal finance, have a course in start with basic economics, microeconomics, and personal finance. And then have another class in statistics. Teach people how to manage their money, and teach people the basic principles by which value is actually created, and then teach people the statistics, teach people how to be able to look at data objectively and not be lied to by other people, teach people how to spot the truth. If you give people enough financial education and statistical education, you will be equipping them far better, most people, than you will by teaching them calculus. And now calculus is almost ubiquitously taught, and it's pretty useless for anybody that isn't going into a STEM area or isn't interested in computer modeling of something that can use calculus, or somehow isn't going to make these connections until a later point, in which case it would be better to wait until a later point to learn calculus. So just go and mix out 2 years of a math curriculum and teach people how to properly not throw their money down the toilet. Now, the only problem with that is you're not going to find a single politician that will actually want to do that, except maybe at the local level. Because the way politics are done, especially in the United States, but you just go ahead and say in the West, and ultimately governments everywhere are in debt up to their eyeballs. The entire economic structure is predicated upon people having no clue what's going on. And central banks can try to mess with things. Central banks can do, but ultimately you wind up having a minority of people with a clue that wind up getting ahead, and the majority of people that have no idea what's going on that wind up essentially being wage slaves their whole lives. So that's an argument for decentralization of education. It's a very compelling argument, I think, because if you care about your students, if you care about students, if you want what's best for them, you will let the decisions be made locally. You will let decisions be made preferably by parents and by people who love and care for children, who say, I want my kids to learn how to take care of money, even if they're not good with money themselves. I want my kids to learn how to do that so they're not going to be in a bad situation. Local people that have an interest in actually the well-being of students, people who have a personal interest. And so you basically, it's very easy to go from looking at purchasing a phone to making, I hope, would be a compelling case for financial education for children and decentralization of the educational system in general. So it's been about 20-minute break, or 15-minute break or something. My wife made me a lovely piece of toast. So a big thanks to her. But now, in addition to the Iliad, and I'm not going to be streaming 4 times throughout the course of a week anymore. I'm going to be unable to do that because I'm in the process of studying and working. So I think that, well, four times in the weekend and once on the weekend. So I'm thinking either 2 or 3 streams will be it. But I will be able to, at a different time, put out videos. And I'm contemplating, do I do personal finance? Do I do microeconomics? Or do I do something from the hard sciences? I'm just going to be doing a basic screen capture, having nothing more than a pen and tablet, and going through something. So if any of you would like to leave in the chat or in the comments section below a recommendation for me, and the choices are finance, personal finance, microeconomics, and some sort of a hard science. So let me know what the hard science would be. Please do let me know, because that's going to be the next mini project. We'll be doing the Iliad live, and then we'll be doing one of these more hard skill type things in terms of videos to be released probably 2 or 3 per week. There'll be little short tidbits that will hopefully bring you up to speed on some subject or another. Alright, so we've been streaming for about 20 minutes. I'm thinking that this one will go for about 40 minutes or an hour. This won't be too long. And the next thing I thought would be useful to discuss in the wake of the Kavanaugh hearings and his confirmation and inauguration as a Supreme Court Justice is this idea, and I'll put I'll put a link into the chat here. If I can find it. There you go. You can open that in another tab. And it's about defamation. It's basically about what people do in order to play the political game. It's an interesting piece, and it goes. It's the practice of ritual defamation. How Values, Opinions, and Beliefs Are Controlled in Democratic Societies by Laird Wilcox, written in 1990. And I'll have you pay very, very close attention to this because I think it explains a great amount what has been going on recently. Regardless of whether you agree with Kavanaugh's policies or not, I believe that the issue in question, unless it is an actual issue where you bring truthful allegations as opposed to politically expedient ones, or merely politically expedient ones, backing up, I think that people should be focused on relevant issues. And the reason I'm going to go and say the whole Ford thing was irrelevant will, I hope, become clear throughout the course of reading this. Defamation is the destruction or attempted destruction of the reputation, status, character, or standing in the community of a person or group of persons by unfair, wrongful, or malicious speech or publication. For the purposes of this essay, the central element is defamation in retaliation for the real or imagined attitudes, opinions, or beliefs of the victim, with the intention of silencing or neutralizing his or her influence and or making an example of them, so as to discourage similar independence and insensitivity or non-observance of taboos. It is different in nature and degree from simple criticism or disagreement, in that it is aggressive, organized, and skillfully applied, often by an organization or representative of a special interest group, and in that it consists of several characteristic elements. Ritual defamation is not ritualistic because it follows any prescribed religious or mystical doctrine, nor is it embraced in any particular document or scripture. Rather, it is ritualistic because it follows a predictable, stereotyped pattern which embraces a number of elements as in a ritual. The elements of a ritual defamation are these. 1. In a ritual defamation, the victim must have violated a particular taboo in some way, usually by expressing or identifying with a forbidden attitude, opinion, or belief. It is not necessary that he do anything about it or undertake any particular course of action, only that he engage in some form of communication or expression. The method of attack in a ritual defamation is to assail the character of the victim and never to offer more than a perfunctory challenge to the particular attitudes, opinions, or beliefs expressed or implied. Character assassination is its primary tool. An important rule in ritual defamation is to avoid engaging in any kind of debate over the truthfulness or reasonableness of what has been expressed. Only condemn it. To debate opens the issue up for examination and discussion of its merits, and to consider the evidence that may support it, which is just what the ritual defamer is trying to avoid. The primary goal of a ritual defamation is censorship and repression. 4. The victim is often somebody in the public eye, someone who is vulnerable to public opinion, although perhaps in a very modest way. It could be a school teacher, writer, businessman, minor official, or merely an outspoken citizen. Visibility enhances vulnerability to ritual defamation. 5. An attempt, often successful, is made to involve others in the defamation. In the case of a public official, other public officials will be urged to denounce the offender. In the case of a student, other students will be called upon, and so on. In the case of a man, a woman going to a party will be called upon. In order for a ritual defamation to be effective, the victim must be dehumanized to the extent that he becomes identical with the offending attitude, opinion, or belief, and in a manner which distorts it to the point where it appears at its most extreme. So, privileged, white, oppressive male in the case of Kavanaugh. For example, a victim who is defamed as a subversive will be identified with the worst images of subversion, such as espionage, terrorism, or treason. So a privileged white, a privileged white oppressive male will be identified as sexually oppressive. So people will go and find that particular thing that fits the stereotyped idea of the character that they're supposed to play in the narrative. A victim defamed as a pervert will be identified with the worst images of perversion, including child molestation and rape. A victim defamed as a racist or anti-Semitic will be identified with the worst images of racism or anti-Semitism, such as lynching or gas chambers. Also, to be successful, a ritual defamation must bring pressure and humiliation on the victim from every quarter, including family and friends. If the victim has school children, they may be taunted and ridiculed as a consequence of adverse publicity. If they are employed, they may be fired from their job. If the victim belongs to clubs or associations, other members may be urged to expel them. Any explanation the victim may offer, including the claim of being misunderstood, is considered irrelevant. To claim truth as a defense for a politically incorrect value, opinion, or belief is interpreted as defiance and only compounds the problem. Ritual defamation is often not necessarily an issue of being wrong or incorrect, but rather of insensitivity and failing to observe social taboos. An interesting aspect of ritual defamation as a practice is its universality. It is not specific to any value, opinion, or belief to any group or subculture. It may be used for or against any political, ethnic, national, or religious group. It may, for example, by anti-Semites against Jews, or by Jews against anti-Semites, by rightists against leftists, or by leftists against rightists, and so on. The power of ritual defamation lies entirely in its capacity to intimidate and terrorize. It embraces some elements of primitive, superstitious belief, as in a curse or hex. It plays into the subconscious fear most people have of being abandoned or rejected by the tribe or by society and being cut off from social and psychological support systems. I'll break from the reading a bit and say that. So if somebody is kind of above the whole situation, or if somebody is in a position where it doesn't really matter too much to him whether he is rejected or accepted by society or whatever because he's independently wealthy or something, then it isolates the people that support him or her. Because if you go and you support a racist in quotes, or you go and you support a sexist, or you go and you support a rapist, or you go and you support somebody who has had whatever allegations levied, those allegations then go and tarnish your own reputation. And so you risk, in just merely voicing support for somebody like Kavanaugh, you risk being rejected by the tribe or by society and being cut off from social and psychological support systems. The weakness of ritual defamation lies in its tendency toward overkill and in its obvious maliciousness. Occasionally, a ritual defamation will fail because of poor planning and failure to correctly judge the vulnerability of the victim, or because its viciousness inadvertently generates sympathy, which it certainly did in the case of Kavanaugh. They went overboard, and ultimately Ford's friend was caught conspiring to, even though she didn't remember anything about the party, and even though she didn't remember any of these details, any of these things that were supposedly facts, she just said, well, I believe her. I believe her. That's all it is. And had been conspiring. There is now evidence being shown that she was conspiring to do everything that she could to help Ford's story get propagated and promoted and so on. So, occasionally a ritual defamation will fail because of poor planning and failure to correctly judge the vulnerability of the victim, or because its viciousness inadvertently generates sympathy. And I will guarantee you that women who are not leftists, women on the right, feel sympathetic for toward Kavanaugh. Women on the right will vote in droves. The leftists have shot themselves in the foot. It's important to recognize and identify the patterns of a ritual defamation. Like all propaganda and disinformation campaigns, it is accomplished primarily through the manipulation of words and symbols. It is not used to persuade, but to punish. Although it may have cognitive elements, its thrust is primarily emotional. Ritual defamation is used to hurt, to intimidate, to destroy, and to persecute, and to avoid the dialogue, debate, and discussion upon which a free society depends. On those grounds, it must be opposed, no matter who tries to justify its use. And that is why I believe that people should stick to things that can be, well, things that are true, first off, or things that are substantiable, right? And so the only way that you can go and shine a light on this ritual defamation is by repeating it, is by making it a part of the the subjects that come up. If this Wilcox article gets disseminated, if this Wilcox article gets put out into the interwebs, if the Wilcox article gets attention, then people will be able to easily articulate in 2 words, ritual defamation, every single instance that they see it. And then ritual defamation will lose its power. And then we will be able to focus on the issues. But if it doesn't have a name, and if it can't be clearly identified immediately with a name, people will continue to try it. People will continue to do it. Frankly, I'm concerned for my reputation. I know that simply by stating that I don't think that there is enough evidence to conclude that Kavanaugh is a rapist, that could come to bite me in the butt. Being able to say that may bite me in the butt. Especially by people that treat this sort of a thing as a contagion, an allegation. It's a person. And then by me associating in any less than condemning way, and I mean condemning in terms of in this thing, I hold this person as the crud that you scrape off the bottom of a shoe. If I don't have that attitude toward Kavanaugh, then immediately the stigma comes and rests upon me. And so I'm allowing myself to be set up here as a target. I'm allowing anybody that wishes to go and single me out. And people will come up with all sorts of lies to tell about me. They'll go and they'll say whatever they want to. And I will respond with, this is ritual defamation. Now, people may decide to ignore me, either because I'm too small, or because they know that I will respond with, this is ritual defamation, and I will create a big enough stink to make it not worth their time. But I encourage you at every single point to identify ritual defamation. And when you find it, dissociate from it and stick to discussing the actual issues. Shine a light on it and redirect the conversation to something more appropriate. That's my 2 cents on the whole Kavanaugh issue. I don't have too much more to say on, well, pretty much anything regarding that today. But I said that we would have a 40-minute stream, and so if any of you have any questions, I'll just be here, or comments. Questions, comments, outbursts, disagreements. You're more than welcome to bring them up. We're waiting for responses. I'll simply state that I hope that on this channel we'll be able to discuss the truth, and in ambiguous cases that we will be okay with the ambiguity, that we will be okay with the idea that certain things cannot be known. And that hopefully we would not necessarily go out of our way to be too diplomatic, but that we would at least attempt to put a positive construction on the words and actions of another, unless we are faced with conclusive proof that that's not the way it is. Putting the best construction on something doesn't mean putting a good construction. It just means putting the best construction. And frankly, in the case of Ford, it's very difficult for me to do that. She very well may have been right. Not necessarily even by Kavanaugh. She may have had all sorts of things. Bad things happen to her. But if people go and they get this huge traumatic experience, a lot of times the details leading up to it wind up becoming fuzzy. I don't know about Ford, but I do know that sometimes people like to have someone to blame. And sometimes people like to have someone's life to live. Some people view that as justice. And the sad reality is, in life, in this life, we have no guarantee of justice. We don't. We have absolutely no guarantee that when someone wrongs us, that we will ever be recompensed, that they will ever be appropriately punished, or anything of that nature, that they will be rehabilitated. We have no such guarantees in life. We have this lovely imaginary world where people don't wrong each other, and those that do wrong wind up getting, well, somehow the situation winds up getting immediately rectified. And that world is full of rainbows and unicorns. I mean, everybody farts sprinkles and poops sunshine. And it's a hard reality for people for some people to pick up on. The fact that life is difficult, the fact that fairness is not guaranteed, the fact that people can go through tremendous suffering, and the one causing the suffering can get off completely free. It's wrong. And still, somehow, people. Well, obviously, the suicide rate is considerably lower than 100%. So people must still find something worth living, in spite of all the evil. In spite of all the evil, people still find this worth living. And that is I think that's of supreme importance. So let's consider how we can make life more worth living for us and for those around us. We may not be able to ensure justice for everyone, but in our own social circles, we can certainly do our part to improve the situation. Thank you very much for your time, and I look forward then to seeing you tomorrow's a Monday night at 9:30 Eastern Time. I believe Stephen Stutz will also be joining me, if I'm not mistaken. That should be the case. Once again, thank you. Talk to you later.